Hey guys, it's Equinox, and this is just going to be a quick video about is Brew worth it to play in Dragonflight. I'm going to go over its pros and its cons and overall my opinion on it. I'm going to try to be as unbiased as possible and just like go over the real points. I'm not going to be like, oh, it feels really good. I'll try not to, but I probably will, but pretty much just gonna state like things I think that they're good about and the things that they're bad about and pros, cons, all that stuff. So let's get right into it. Let's start off with the cons. Number one thing, button bloat. Brew unfortunately does have a decent amount of button bloat. They have a lot of cooldowns to use. They have a lot of rotational abilities to use. They have on-use trinkets that are on top of that that are really good and on-use abilities. So I'm going to show you a couple. Decoration and Flame. This is basically Blood Spattered Scale 2.0. They have Choker of Shielding. This is actually really good and a little bit underrated. You only lose about 152 secondaries, and it gives you a 67k shield, so you're only present for you. Boom, 66, 949, and you lose 132 mastery. So yeah, pretty nice, pretty worth it. And then we go through the buttons. You have Summon Tiger Statue, Dampen Harm, Diffuse, Fort Brew off the GCD, so that's fine. Black Ox Brew, Bone Dust Brew, Exploding Keg, your Charred Passions abilities, Blackout Kick, Spinning Crane Kick, Rising Sun Kick, Expel Harm, Zen Med, right? Weapons of, I think I went over Weapons of Order, Nizao, Tiger's Lust. You have so many, Chi Wave, Touch of Death. You have so many abilities you have to go through, and all of them are good. Like it's not like you're not going to use these buttons and keys. So yeah, you do have a lot of button bloat. That is a con. You can reduce it by taking out stuff like Weapons for Order or Bone Dust, whichever one you prefer. You can take out Black Ox Brew for Bob and Weave. Dampen Harm and Diffuse you really need. There's no option there. You can take out White Tiger Statue if you want, but it's good damage, so I think it's good. Also with the HP change, we might be speccing into Healing Elixir, so that might be another button we add. So base TLDR, button bloat, kind of an issue for us. Next con, we are weak against magic damage if you are not good at pre-planning your cooldowns. So what I mean by that is all of Brew's defensive cooldowns are preemptive. They're not reactionary cooldowns like Last Stand, Meta, stuff that gives you a skyrocket of HP and defensive value. Brew doesn't have that. They have Dampen Harm and Diffuse. Both are preemptive. Fort Brew is mostly preemptive. It doesn't get much value using a reactionary anymore. It used to with Fort Ingredients, which is the conduit. So that's pretty much their Their only real reactionary defensive is Celestial Brew. So they pretty much have all preemptive cooldowns. So that's stuff you're gonna have to watch out for. If you do not plan your cooldowns properly, magic damage will just melt you. If you don't have any cooldowns, magic damage will melt you. We have very poor magic mitigation. Stagger is something like 17% of magic damage. It's not very good. And arguably doesn't even work like that sometimes. A lot of abilities kind of go through stagger, like tank busters kind of go through stagger sometimes. You'll notice that with stuff like shred armor and miss. Some stuff is just coded like that. Last con is our HP pool relative to other tanks is not very high, and given that our mitigation isn't as strong as other tanks, stagger on paper is really good, but when you stack it up to stuff like block, demonic ward, stuff like that, it's not as strong. Sure, like really good on paper, it's very consistent, it's very strong mitigation, but a lot of stuff does go through stagger. Like, unfortunately, that is the reality of the case. Some things do not get staggered equally. It's not like, same thing that with something like that would go through block. It's just not as potent as stuff like block and M plus. And raid stagger's fantastic. You don't really take much damage in raid, so. But this is a pros and cons for M plus. Those are the three major cons. I'm going to go into the pros. So the pros are they have extremely high damage. Brew has the highest tank damage out of any tank right now, bar none. There is no tank that comes close to them if you play your damage rotation properly. That is just the reality of it. They do a crap ton of damage. They scale very well with targets because of Resonant Fist. The more targets there are, the more damage we do. Talking about defenses, we do have pretty strong defensives if you use them properly. Diffuse and dampen. Dampen, I'm sure you guys know I do not like dampen. I think it's not a very good cooldown. But if you use it on the proper packs, it does get a lot of value, and it is pretty good. Diffuse is obviously really good against magic damage. Fantastic defensive cooldown. I think it's amazing. Fort Brew, preemptively used properly, is a fantastic cooldown. You will notice how stable you are in a pack if you use it at the proper time. Celestial Brew is a great cooldown. Very high absorb. And then Black Ox Brew giving you two free purifies, and then another Celestial Brew. Fantastic defensive cooldown. And we also have a stagger reset from Touch of Death every 1.5 minutes. So yeah, Brew's defensive kit is actually really good. You just have to use it properly. That is they're basically the main thing. Like Brew is definitely you have to play this tank properly to get its strength. So, and that is the main thing. Another pro is their damage intake. While sometimes, very rarely, they will spike, but oftentimes it is very smooth. It's not like Prot Warrior where they literally sit at 100% HP all the time, but if you have like a healer like Evoker or Resto Druid or Holy Pally with Beacon Healing, you're gonna be fine. Like you won't really spike too much. The only time you'll have trouble is if you're not very good at managing your defensive cooldowns, and that's like I said, that's the reality of Brew. It is an optimized class. If you want to get the most out of it, you have to optimize it. They have very good mob control. Brew has very strong mob control. Leg sweep and Ring of Peace. They're good at keeping mobs in a section or keeping them like stacked together while you're kiting. One thing that brew players should start doing is like leading your Ring of Peace a little bit. I know people like not unless you're using it for a stop, but if you lead your Ring of Peace when kiting, it'll make so the mobs don't get knocked back very far. It'll just be little mini knocks. So if you use that stuff properly, you can keep mobs very neat. So that's the big main pros, is they have very smooth damage intake if you use your cooldowns properly. They have strong defensives if used properly, and they have extremely high damage. So I want to talk about their self-healing because I don't think it's a pro or a con. It's just kind of an in-between. Their self-healing is very reliant on you taking damage because of Gotox. Gotox is Gift of the Ox Orb, so right here. It's somewhere. Brew, Gift of the Ox, right here. When you take damage, you have a chance to summon a Healing Sphere. The more damage you take, more chance you have to summon a Healing Sphere. The only con I do not like about this is the fact that there's not a reliable way to summon orbs. Stuff like Boiling Brew, I wish was a trait instead of Celestial Flames. Replace Celestial Flames with Boiling Brew. Boom, Gift of the Ox summons, and our self-healing problem is more or less solved. Expel Harm. While it did get nerfed, one, it got nerfed with Strength of Spirit being nerfed, and two, it got nerfed when our HP got massively buffed by 40%. Because Expel Harm hasn't gotten changed at all. It is still a relatively low heal, except when it crits. When it crits at low HP, it actually is still a valuable heal, and is still very strong. Guy Pins. This talent right here, this is just really good if you're taking heavy stagger damage. I think it's a fantastic talent. Pair that with Black Ox Brew, and you have a way to just pop spam heals on yourself. And I think that's a really, good thing to have in our toolkit. I think it's fantastic. Overall, I think our self-healing isn't a pro or a con. I think it's just you having to play properly around your healing toolkit. Celestial Brew, Expel Harm, Gift of the Ox Orbs, and Guy Pins. I think it's just a skill thing. Same with the rest of the kit. It's just a very if you play the class properly, you are rewarded for it. And I think that's how it is. If you do not play the class properly, you're going to have issues. So that's pretty much where I am at with the spec. So just to review, pros and cons. Pros, very high damage, strong defensive if played properly, and really strong mob control. And very smooth damage intake if played properly. That's pretty much the defensive. Cons, high button bloat, punished if you do not play the class properly, and they are squishy versus magic damage outside of their defensive cooldowns. But overall, do I think Brew's worth playing? I absolutely think if you are going to put a time into a tank, you will be rewarded with Brew. If you do not want to put as much time or want to put as much effort into a tank, it is not for you. Unfortunately, the class just needs a lot of effort put into it. Also, sorry, there's a train in the background. But overall, I think Brew's a really fun tank. I think its high damage is going to be a big benefit to it in Shadowland or Dragonflight M Plus, and I do think it is. I do think it is worth playing if you're going to put the time and effort into it. I would play something like DH or Warrior if you do not want to put a bunch of time and effort into a tank to learn how to play it properly. And yeah, that's pretty much my opinion. It is a strong tank, but it is definitely skill based. So, yep. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. Like, subscribe, show the channel some support. I appreciate all the support you guys give me. Check out the Twitch and Twitter. It'll be linked in the description below. Join the community Discord, and have a good one. Peace.